10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, oh, that is a really cool new intro. Thanks, Reggie. Welcome, everybody. This is the new episode of the CFAA Film Talk. We are really excited about bringing the information to you tonight, and the things that we have coming up are right in line with what you need to know, and we're happy to deliver that information. If this is your first time watching, the Capital Film Arts Alliance is a nonprofit film association in Sacramento that's geared to the growth and development of the local region. Now with our bigger footprint through our online webcast, we're recognizing a whole bigger community and people that we can help. So welcome, and if we can, share anything further with you, you can reach us always on our website, which is capitalfilmarts.org. On that, you also have an archive for all of the Film Talk episodes that we've done, so you can see the conversations that we've had with producers and directors and so many people that are in the industry that can share their expertise and knowledge with you. So again, capitalfilmarts.org is where you can find that. Let me see, we've got a weekly newsletter, every other week newsletter. If you're interested in receiving that, there's a link on the website that you can get the newsletter for free. And if you are wanting to support the efforts of what we do and the programming that we put out, you can also support that through your membership. That information is also on the website, or just any kind of a donation that you can afford. We appreciate everything, and we work with nothing. Let's see. So tonight, we've got an incredible topic, and this has been really up in current news for filmmakers, and it's the COVID protocols and procedures that are now needing to be applied and adhered to in order to be safe. This is something that's not going away. We have to all make sure that we're working in the same environments safely and efficiently, because it's going to come down to whether or not you'll get hired if you know what that is and how to do it. So we want to bring all of this information to you from our panel of industry professionals. And we've got a group tonight that, thanks to Mark Herzig, who many of you know locally and have worked with as a DP. You'll notice how beautiful his lighting is tonight, just FYI. Mark Herzig is connected to lots of filmmakers in this region and in the Bay Area, so he's connected us with a couple of people that can add to the conversation. We have Mark as DP. We have Luke Seerveld, who is a gaffer, owns a gaffing company in the Bay Area. Lisa Zomer, hair and makeup specialist. And then last but not least, we have set medic Brad Beadle, Beedle. He is not going to sing, and he's not got three other people with guitar next to him. So Brad Beadle. Anyway, let's bring them on, and we're going to have a conversation about practice safe sets and learn about how we can all participate in that. There's Mark, Lisa, Brad, and then Luke. So that's the downside of having more people online, that we actually get littler faces. But if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have worried so much about my mascara. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, super happy too. We've got the opportunity to, go into deep for this topic. There's no network, so I don't care what you say and what language you use. There's no time lane. We just need to get the information out there and share it in whatever way we can. But what I really want to know, first and foremost, and I'll slide it to Mark first, and then we can go from there, to learn a little bit more about who you are what you do, and what kind of got you started on your journey, and then we'll go into the specifics of how your craft is affected by COVID procedures and protocol and rules that are now coming up, and what you're doing to pivot to meet that. So, Mark.
Yes. Hi. Well, I'm not a very interesting person, but I've been doing this. I tried to figure it out the other day, but I've been doing this for a long time now. And at one point, I was the new guy. Just briefly, I was a focus puller, a first assistant cameraman for about 15 years. And then I cut the cord and said, what I really want to do is light and frame the images myself. So I did that, and I starved for about a year. And then slowly but surely, I started to get a clientele of my own. I've been doing that since about 1995 exclusively. There's still a couple of people I will assist for if they really need it, but I'm not as young as I used to be. And it's that's really a young person's game, is the assistant game. That's about it. I've got short films of my own. I've done hundreds of commercials and corporate image pieces. You can read my blah blah blah. I'm pretty experienced, and the reason I'm here is because I love my profession and I love the people in it, and I want to contribute to its continued life and safety, the two big issues.
Excellent. And then what did you say? What exactly got you on your first gig? How did you actually catch the bug? It's all a bug. We get it.
It was easier when I got in. It was easier to get into the business than it is now. And I started in Sacramento, where at the time there were quite a few. There were about a half a dozen legitimate commercial production companies. And I was a still photographer's assistant for about a year. And then I went looking for work as a motion picture camera assistant and found out that that's not where you start. You start as a PA. So it was getting the drinks out of the cooler and saying, who wants the last Dr. Pepper? And worked my way. And that's pretty much it. The lesson, the important lesson is, nobody is going to move you up unless you can do what you're hired to do at the moment. If you can't successfully get the drinks out for the crew or go and get lunch, if you can't do that because you're not interested in doing that, nobody's going to give you more responsibility. Filmmaking is about responsibility. There's a hierarchy for a reason. It's a hierarchy of responsibilities, and it's a hierarchy based on trust. And I'm trying to keep this on topic for set safety, because trust is all you have. You have the word, if you're in a guild or a union, you have the union behind you. But at that moment on the set, when somebody's doing something unsafe, it's up to you or your colleagues to say, hey, stop doing that. That's not safe.
Right. Cool. Let's, Lisa, tell us about you.
Well, I started in still photography too, actually. That's what I studied in college. And I went to Detroit and worked in the car studios as an assistant, where we did, I think my longest day was only 28 hours. I remember some of the guys talking about, oh, my longest day was 40. So I was kind of a lightweight. And then I went back to school in Toronto to do makeup and decided I should be in California. So that's where I am. But I did all those long hours and I did all that stuff. So I thought I was going to do makeup for still photography because that was my world. And all of a sudden I was doing some operas and somebody got me into I don't even remember what my first shoot was. And I was doing motion. And it was not where I thought I was going to go initially, but I just really stuck there. And the hours were familiar, and waking up at 4 a.m. for sunrise is familiar. So it was great. But I'm like Mark, I miss working and I love my job. And I kept thinking, what if I have to get a new job? And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do that. And I wouldn't like it. And I thought, how lucky am I that I have been able to make a living doing something that I still want to do every day. And I feel like maybe I'm a little entitled because I just want to go back to my job where I'm happy every day, but mostly I feel lucky. And I definitely, what Mark is saying about trust, that's a huge thing for us as makeup artists. It's always been, because we're touching people's faces. You know, aside from the medics, we're the ones touching people, and we're right in that hot zone right now. So it's great. We've had lots of training for cleanliness as makeup artists, but if people don't trust us and they don't feel like things are clean, we're going to set the whole thing off badly.
Yeah.
So, luckily, I'm a little OCD about the clean thing, so it works out.
Yeah, that's a blessing right now. And then why the Bay Area and not LA when you decided to come to California?
Okay, so I had this plane ticket to go to a cousin's wedding, and I was like, on my way back, I'm going to stop. Should I do LA or San Francisco? And at the last minute, I chose San Francisco because if you know Michigan, it's water. We have lots of beach towns, and I felt like LA doesn't feel like I can get out of LA without having to drive for a couple of hours. I can't get to the woods. I can't get to the water easily. I don't like the desert. I don't like traffic. So I picked San Francisco. Of course, the way things are going right now, there's a lot of traffic and a lot of dry weather, but
I know. Well, let's build this thing in Sacramento, and then you can come a little closer and get out of that Bay Area mud.
get out of that traffic, right?
And Luke, welcome.
Yeah, well, interesting to be here because I'm not a Sacramento person either. Have good friends there, of course, and actually just gave a job to Dave Bungie today. So I know you guys all know him.
Yes,
he should be here instead of me.
Well,
but,
we tried to get him on board, and he ended up getting a gig, and so it didn't work out. And
Dave's working today.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'll fill in. But yeah, I grew up in the Midwest and as well, and Chicago and Toronto. And Toronto, when I was in high school, I went to a lot of review theaters and watched double headers of foreign films, and filled my head with Fassbinder and French New Wave and stuff like that. And then there was Apocalypse Now and Road Warrior, and so I thought I'd go all the way to Australia. That was my goal. Work on features, and that didn't turn out that way. I went to college in Iowa and studied philosophy, and then so that was right in line. And then ended up going to the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and somehow got a job at a production company as kind of like an AC. That was back, film days, and then learned how to fix equipment, lighting and grip stuff. And so I had a friend out in San Francisco, sound man Doug Dunnerdale, and he was kind of my link to the West Coast, and I didn't know anybody in LA. And so I had a girlfriend at the time here in San Francisco that drew me here. And then I just started working at the equipment rental houses, DTC and John Fontana and Dick Favaro, and then Alan Steinheimer, and started learning how to fix other people's gear. So got sort of intimate with, the nitty gritty of the business. And I had come as sort of a wannabe AC and realized that as an AC, you sort of came first, left last, and you didn't really have a whole lot of time for socializing. Grip and Electric was awesome. You could, just hang out, tell stories, work real hard, then take a break, and then work real hard, and so I kind of went that route, and worked on low budget features, and then got in the union, worked on commercials, worked on big budget features, and then sort of discovered Silicon Valley and corporate video, and realized I could have a life, have a wife, have a kid, get home on time, and not be divorced 3 times. So that worked out.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. You made all the right choices. And Mr. Beadle, let's hear from you.
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me this evening, and it's so good to see all our panelists. I tremendously respect each of the positions that you guys hold. My journey, I am so blessed in my journey in this industry. I started out, I was actually in paramedic school, and I got a phone call at the firehouse one day that Levi Strauss, of all places, were filming down at the local park. So they needed a medical person down there. And so what the commercial was for, of course, Levi Strauss, and they had given the kids Levi, and they muddied the field and they played touch football, and they just needed somebody there to make sure that the kids were safe. So of course I did it. And after that, I was so excited about the overall. I mean, I got to sit on the sidelines and watch the camera department and all aspects of filming, and I had no desire to do any of it. I wanted to understand it, of course, but I wanted to be around it, and I wanted to do it in the capacity as a medic. So I ended up going to medic school, and while I was in medic school, I actually was caretaker for George Lucas. George Lucas at Skywalker Ranch during the heyday, 77 through about 83. So I got to meet some very cool people there. In fact, when I developed the relationships in the movie industry, far and near, it was very exciting. And also out of that, I've gotten to work some private parties as a medical person. And one of the clients that I do have was Lucasfilm, which is now Disney. So a real quick story about that is, as you know, Kathleen Kennedy, is president of Disney. And she was married to Frank Marshall. And so way back in the day, he was in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he drove that prop plane. Well, if you know anything about Lucasfilm, they gave out yearbooks at 4th of July every year. It was like being in high school. You had your caption, you went around, got people to sign it. And of course, back then in 79, I got Frank Marshall to sign my yearbook. So move it up 40 years later, it was 2 years ago at a venue in San Francisco, and Kathleen Kennedy was there. And of course, I was thrilled to hear this. I went to her security force, explained the situation, knew she was going to be there, had my yearbook. And of course, she's leaving the party. I open up my yearbook, show her the picture of Frank. She's blown away because her caption was Little Katie Kate. And it was a picture of her 40 years before, and she signed my books 40 years later. So talk about relationships. It's so important in this industry. I can't emphasize it enough. I mean, prior to this broadcast, I'm talking about Mark, about working a job with him, the connection with Lisa. Luke had a connection with a job I was on yesterday. So it's all about family. It's all about the connection. It's about the love of what we do. And I tell you right now, I couldn't work a 9-to-5 job every day. But you put me on a set like Lisa talks about, be there for 28 hours. Absolutely. I could do that for 4 or 5 days straight. It's just a different atmosphere. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
And it's very important along the way, the relationships that you build. And it's very important. But I've been extremely blessed. I've been in it for quite a while here. Every time I look on IMDb, I see my accomplishments, not from an ego standpoint, but from the standpoint of, oh my God, these people that I've met and the relationships I have. I mean, another quick story, I worked on the original Top Chef with Tom Colicchio. So I'm back in New York, and I go by one of his restaurants. It's like I was a nobody on set, but just the fact that I had a relationship, and it's something that you carry on for a lifetime. And the stories, are unbelievable. If you've been around long enough, like Mark talks about, I mean, you could, pull stories, and that's the fun of it, is being on set with these people that have been around for a while, and at the same time teaching the new folks that are coming up. I think that's really important. But anyway,
Yeah.
enough of that. I'm just honored to be here tonight. So
You
thanks
know
for
what?
having me.
You just made a perfect segue and a very good point, because I think what's so important is, we all want work. We all want to grab onto what work is there, but we all have a responsibility to contribute to educating and training the ones that are coming up, not so that they take the work away from us, but so that as we can, build a better mousetrap, we've got the opportunity to have good people staffed. And that way, when productions come to Sacramento, all I care about is that they walk away going, damn, that was a great opportunity. That was a great environment. Those are great people to work with. And I'll tell you, the movies that I see being filmed here and that are and the production crew that are coming from out of the area, that is what they seem to be taking away every time they're here. So I just want that to be shared and spread. And I appreciate that all of you have something that you can share with, again, whether they're new filmmaking aspirants or people that are re-entering into the career, being able to, figure out how can we help you reach them. Your information is so valuable, your experiences, and that's the one thing I hadn't really thought about until seeing you all here, is the breadth and depth of your experience will help kind of carry into this new environment that we all have to be wary of. So we need to know, from the standpoint of the most recent shoots that you've been on in your different positions, what is it that you're having to accommodate, and what kind of changes do you see that are still to come? Mark, in regards to the DP, we'll go in the same order and just kind of.
Well, yeah, I've got a great question. I've got a lot to say on that. Let me back up one half step and say that if you're in this profession, or you are wanting to be in this profession, and you are thinking about making a lot of money or hanging out with glamour, the glamour set, that this is not that profession. This is not that profession. When Brad's talking about going down and talking to Tom Colicchio, there are some who would say, "Oh yeah, that's just a shallow, hi, how you doing?" That's not what this profession is about. This profession is about, like we were talking about before we went on, about trust, responsibility. Anyway, I want to talk more about that. But I've worked, regretfully, I got to say, I've worked only 4 times since March, which is a big deal. That's a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah.
The workflow, the challenges that I had in my workflow as a DP were that I had to fight for a look at the monitor. I had to wait until somebody moved away from the monitor. We needed more monitors. Now, a producer would say that adds more money. And it's like, okay, so be it. What does it add to the budget? Maybe $75. So we needed one more monitor. That would have been perfect. The good part about my workflow was I was working with skilled professionals who didn't have any problem with meeting the new protocols. My thing is this: filmmakers are supposed to be problem solvers. If we can't meet this problem with a bunch of solutions, then we suck as filmmakers, and we kind of suck as people. But there are solutions. My concern is that people are not believing that solutions are possible or that solutions are necessary. That's my concern. Both are true. Solutions are possible and solutions are necessary. It's a public health crisis. If you can't wear a mask for 10 hours or until lunch and then eat your food and put the mask back on until wrap, if you can't do that And if you can't do your job wearing gloves sometime, provided by production, then I can't help you and I won't work with you.
Yeah.
I simply won't work with you. You've shown to me by that stance that you're not serious about this profession. You're simply not serious about it because you don't care about me. You don't care about yourself. You don't care about anybody else that you're working with. And by extension, you don't care about our job. So bringing it back, if you care about the job, you got to care about the people.
Yeah. So are you finding as a DP that it's adding more time or more preparation or more equipment or kind of a combination of all?
The times it is a combination. And let me add, no one I know is working on movies. Movies are down. Netflix is down. All of that form is shut down, except for Tyler Perry. And he's got a very interesting solution that I'm not sure what to make of it, but it seems to be working. What is starting to work is some commercials, and the challenge for commercials is the writers of the commercials, the clients, have to scale the idea to the new reality. So if that adds 2 or 3 or 4 hours to the day, they have to somehow figure that out.
Yeah.
And that's reality. That's not somebody saying, "Oh well, I'm going to charge you more. I'm going to charge you overtime because we have to do more on the front end or more on the back end." That's not a gouge. That's just reality.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's where going into production, every department has to advise as to how this is affecting them, because no one person is going to have that information until we all start, contributing that. How about you, Lisa? And I know, hair and makeup, I agree, is the two.
It's been very quiet.
Toughest part.
Down. I mean, everybody touches and is touched by your department. So,
I used to say that we had to get people's trust because of all professions. Like, how many people touch you the first 5 minutes they've met you? It's a doctor or a nurse or something like that. Yeah. And here we are. And, to the end, what Mark was saying about teamwork is we're all a team. So if I'm not careful, somebody gets sick, then that person gets sick. That's saying I don't care about the rest of my crew. And I've always looked to like the grip and electric department. They were always kind of the ones making sure we were safe with things. And now I think a lot more of that's going to fall on my department.
Yeah.
Because we're touching the actors, and the actors are vulnerable because they're the ones not wearing masks so much. And our unions have had a lot of meetings about it. I've sat in on a lot of stuff. So I guess I'm working, but I'm not on set just to learn all the new things. And I really feel like I was having discussions with people, like now is the time to establish that we have extra costs. We have masks, we have disinfectants. We have to take that time. My mom lives in Michigan and she's going to the hair salon and she's like, I feel safer than I do at the doctor's office because her stylist takes a half an hour to clean in between everybody.
Wow.
We start reading how long this is going to get a little technical, but how long contact times are for disinfectants. Most people use Lysol and they spray it on, they wipe it off. It's not how it works. Sit. And depending on the solution, it has to sit for at least 10 minutes usually. And so I can't have some director go, okay, you have 20 people. And when I'm like, oh, that'll take me, used to be, I'm like, I can do that 20 people with an assistant, maybe 3 hours. No, you're going to have to do it in an hour and a half. Well, I used to be like, it takes what it takes if you want it done right. Well, now I have a bottle of Viricide saying this takes 10 minutes and you can't fight with that. And, I'm going to need producers to back that up and say, this is what it takes. And we've been so getting into the thing where we push things to be so fast, and people are really going to have to listen to, we need the time, like my son, I'm not trying to gouge somebody. I'm trying not to get sick, and I'm trying not to get the entire production sick.
Yeah.
So
we had a question. We've had a ton of comments and a lot of people that are saying hi and how much they love you guys. But I'm looking for questions that we can share, and one specific to makeup came up. Steve Orsino is asking, is the makeup department required to be tested before every shoot? And I think that kind of goes with, is every person on set required to be tested? And on a long-term shoot, how often would you be tested?
yeah, we are definitely part of the crew, so it's kind of the same. I have had clients. I had a commercial come up, and it was with one particular named talent. And they were like, I'll pay you to go get your test ahead of time and just submit the bill. And that's fine. But I think they're going to be more sensitive to us because we are so close to the talent.
Yeah.
But I don't think it really makes a difference, because when we talk about aerosols and all that stuff in the air, once I'm in the same room with you, it doesn't matter if I'm the gaffer or the camera or the makeup artist. So you just want to make sure your makeup artist is clean.
Yeah. Yes.
It was always important. Now it's really important.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We actually had a comment earlier that said that the makeup area is how they gauge how the set is going to be, and if they're not following the rules, the rest doesn't matter. So that's a good point. They look to that to see what the
I think makeup has the toughest hill to climb in this whole thing, because of what Lisa's saying. It's such an intimate thing. It's one thing if I got a camera assistant 2 feet away from me, I can say, back up a bit, and that the assistant can still do their job. Lisa has to be on top of you to do her job. It's that. So I think makeup has the toughest hill to climb, and
yeah.
It's really scary. I have a friend who's a doctor, and she is, she signed up to be on the surge when it came into Alameda or Sutter. I can't remember which hospital she's with, and it never came because we did a good job for the most part in Alameda County. But I said to her, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she's like, oh, you can't go back to work. You're touching all the hot zones, and you can't go back to work till there's a vaccine. And I was just thinking, if this person who's not afraid to do that is telling me don't go back to work, I have a lot to consider. And, so talent's not wearing a mask. They can't wear a mask while I'm doing their makeup.
Yeah.
So close, and they are vulnerable and they're important, but I'm important too, we're like this close.
And same question for Luke, and I do want to go back to testing because we had a conversation earlier about it that I want to revisit, but I still want to go into your individual crafts and changes or updates that you're having to accommodate, with all of this.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects, obviously, and there's a big difference between size of crew. So if you've got a feature, and that's why features just aren't happening, except maybe in Iceland, or in Europe or wherever, just because you've got so many moving parts and it's hard to pod out, 200 people. But on the small shoots, those are the ones that are happening. And so, 2, 3, 5, 10 people, it's much more doable. And so I guess that's sort of one thing. I'm trying to keep myself to stay on smaller jobs. So saying no to, bigger jobs, which is perfect because I don't get asked to work on a lot of big jobs. But and there's some positives. So one is in Silicon Valley, we're mostly shooting in empty buildings, so we're
Very
shooting
true.
in all, we're working in all those areas that we would be, salivating over, like, oh, we could get so much nice depth of field here if we could just shoot here, but it's allowed, everybody's walking in the front door, people are using the elevators, people are using the lunchroom, whatever it is. Now we get to shoot there. And so for me, I feel like being on a job where everybody's been asked a question, everybody has maybe even had a test, but a lot of jobs I'm on, you don't have to have a test. I feel pretty safe. I mean, I feel safer there than going to the grocery store where I don't know anybody, on some level. And so that's a positive. Another positive is before we went back to work. So the few months where we were just all sitting around wondering what was going to happen next, we were all talking about how we were going to keep those surfaces clean and our gear, and how we were going to, use special, guns with wraparound electrostatic cleaning. And, we were just like going, the propellers were really spinning about how we were going to keep everything clean. And now you get on set and you realize it's a lot easier if you just think everything is always dirty. If you haven't cleaned it yourself, it's dirty.
Yeah.
And then it's all about your personal cleanliness when you need to touch your face or put food in your face. And so if you always think that everything is dirty, you're a whole lot better off than saying everything's got to be spick and span all the time, because there's no way you can keep on top of that. It's still a good idea to keep on top of, the major touch points. But I think if everybody gets that mindset that they're always in a place of infection,
yeah,
you're a lot better off. So
Smart. I think that's excellent advice, honestly.
that's that team mind, the team responsibility, looking out for everybody else. That's where that mindset comes from. It's how can we make it safe, and how can we make it as easy and effective for everyone else to do this job that we're on.
Right.
My concern is the people that don't believe that it's a problem. That's my concern. I don't worry about my colleagues in what I try to avoid calling the business. I don't worry about them. I worry about the people who we were talking about earlier, the people who are trying to make their own films, the independents, the non-union, non-guild, outside the system. I worry about what their experience is, because they don't have the same experience that we do in terms of what this profession means in terms of its group integrity. And that's what it's all about, group integrity. And if you don't believe, not to put too fine a point on it, but if you don't believe that the virus exists, or you don't believe it's a problem, again, I'm making a list of who I can't work with.
Yeah, pretty much.
Period.
It's making me very selective. What things, like Luke said, I feel safe with these 5 people. Well, that's because we know those people, and we know that they feel the same way. And, I almost feel like we all talked about, there was like a board, and they were all talking like, okay, well, we're all kind of feeling out what the production asks us as far as what have you been saying? Like when my client says, are you willing to get a test? Well, to me, that says you think testing's important.
Yep.
And so you're going to be the same mindset as I am.
Right.
If people are like, how fast can you do these 40 people? And I've only got this much time.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're going to have fun, different makeup artist.
Yeah.
You know, I have a friend who does wardrobe, and we were just talking today, and somebody asked her, and she said, they're just pushing. And I told him it takes longer. And if you don't want to do it, then I can't help you. Like,
Yeah.
it's becoming life or death whether we take a job in a whole different way than it used to be.
Yeah, it's beyond the skill sets. You know, who's got what skill sets? It now has to be, you know, how complicit are you in doing what we all needs to be done? Brad, you have a different experience because you're going into the set as a set medic to review. I want to know more about specifically what your job is. We have one comment that I think I want you guys to think about. So Diodonis Moquette, who some of you know, hey, Brad's awesome. We're going with you recently, and Mark, it's good to see you. Da, 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 da. My question is, because I was lucky enough to get onto film sets right before COVID hit, I'm used to working on COVID safe sets. How do you think safety precautions will be affected in the long term or after COVID is over? So that's an interesting point because we're making these new habits part of what's really ingrained in us to do our job. And yet, if we can look to a future where this is not an issue, will we maintain a lot of or any of these practices? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. And I will touch on that in a second. What I wanted to do is back up a couple steps on a point that Mark had made. Here again, I'm not saying it to be a big shot by all means, but just think of the words. When I worked for George Lucas, he told me one day saying it was move, adapt, or die. And to Mark's point about that's exactly what we need to do in this industry. The whole thing about the monitor really stuck with me because how easy it to get wireless monitors. You know, something that simple. You need to make those changes. You know, not having everybody at one monitor, sticking another monitor in for a couple dollars more. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. And to Lisa's point about you know, production, we've been used to that environment where we're got to get the shot, the lighting, we're losing this, so, you know, everybody's uptight. We're going to have to take 10 steps back because it's a different way of doing business. In the classes that I teach for the COVID-19, I've taught over 3,000 people from coast to coast and everywhere in between. I encourage people to hook up with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. They have. I get phone calls constantly. The question we spoke before we came live about the fact that the production PA can't be the COVID-19 officer. It's a standalone position. It has the responsibility of one job and one job only. The only reason why I'm listed on call sheets when I do jobs, and they're small jobs, 12 people, only because everybody knows me as a medic. I'm not working a dual role. When I work union jobs, it's either the medic or the COVID-19. I wanted to make that very clear. So when it comes to the question that was just asked, and I always refer to, and when I teach this, I refer back to the Sarah Jones incident. If you're not familiar with it, look it up. It was a death on a set where they were using unsafe practices. There was a death that was involved. And I think if we don't think about that in terms of safety, that we're doing everybody a disservice. The person that's ensuring your set, and everybody involved, they need to take a responsibility. So I'm feeling that, unfortunately, with these incidents, the awareness is out there. And the other thing that needs to happen is if you're, and I'm going to just call out, say, a grip. If you're on set and you see something unsafe, and I get this all the time, oh my God, you should have been here last week. The job I did, somebody got hurt. And I said, well, they had a medic. Oh no, they cut the medic out of the thing. I go, you know, well, that's great. But what you need to do, it's your responsibility, is to stand up. And a lot of people in the past have been scared to stand up because it's going to piss, or they think it's going to piss somebody off, or they're not going to get called for the next job. I think you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people that you work with that safety is paramount out there. And to answer your question, I think post COVID-19 is something that we really have to. This is a stepping stone to that point. We really need to stand up to what is right out there. So In terms of how it's changed my world, I'm sorry, you guys, but I've been working. I've probably had a week off since the end of February. I worked a big job. There was over 2,000 people on set. We were set up in pods in one area of the production, and then a lot of the smaller things we've either done a walking interview, downtown Chinatown, or we've been out at the beach, mostly outdoors, a couple indoor. But COVID-19 was always practiced to a T. And most of the time I operated as the COVID-19 compliance officer. So extremely blessed. People are taking it serious, safety, and they should. I've always rattled that sword, and but when it comes to the people at the top that are, the no disrespect, but the bean counters, they look at that as not an important position. So moving forward, I hope they take it serious. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy being around the people I hang out with, and I am truly, truly blessed.
Those are all great points. I'd like to just address Diodonis's question by kicking it over to Luke. Luke, what was the first instance on set when somebody looked at you and said, "Really? You're going to put that drink that close to that electric cable?" You learn little by little, what it means to be in the profession and to be working around. You can lose your life on a movie set, even a small movie set. Sarah Jones, when Sarah Jones woke up that morning, she had no thought about that. She trusted the people she was working with and the people she was working for. And
Absolutely.
that trust was violated, and she lost her life. Vic Morrow, the same way. Vic Morrow had every reason to suspect that his life would be taken seriously, and it wasn't. And that's an imponderable. That's an imponderable. How is it going to change set safety going forward? I hope it's simply going to keep it topic number one, because it is.
Time to speak up.
And I think on a larger set, you definitely have to have a COVID compliance officer. On a smaller set, that often is on us. And so you do have to stand up if people just want to push through like normal, and they're not doing it safely, and everybody's starting to crowd and all that kind of stuff. Then you have to be that leader, and that often was, like Lisa said before, that often was G&E, or second meal. Who's gonna put their foot down and say, yep, we need to have something, we need to stop, we got to
stop and eat.
Yeah. But maybe going forward, these learnings, to verb it, is going to be a good thing. We're going to learn to be safer. It's like, what if we wear masks? We'd maybe have colds less often.
Well, just to tie a little bow in this. This is what the guilds had in mind when they came to be: is how could we keep these people working for a fair wage and without being in danger of losing their lives every time they wake up? And by extension, I was brought up in a non-union environment. I eventually joined a union. That's another story. But I was brought up in a non-union environment that obeyed union protocols.
It's kind of unusual.
Well, it was standard when I came up, and it's fallen into shreds now because people aren't brought up that way. The outside, the profession, the indies, a lot of them simply aren't using guild standards, and they're really simple. At the very simplest, it's like, it's a 10-hour day. At 6 hours, you got to call a meal. Okay. And then if you're not paying overtime or you're not paying anybody, that's okay. That's on you, whatever you think. But safety, 6 hours is a meal. 10 hours is like, what, are we done? And it puts the burden where it belongs, on the producer. That's what producers are supposed to do. They're supposed to be able to schedule and budget work that fits into a guild structure. Okay, absolutely. I'm off my soapbox now.
Absolutely agree, Mark.
No,
Just because you're not in a union doesn't mean there's no rules. To paraphrase my friend David Bungie, there are rules.
This is going to engender more respect, to be honest. It's like you're saying to Luke, oh, how long was it before you're like, really, you put your drink there?
Yeah.
And that's a safety issue. And people come to the makeup trailer. I'm going to set my breakfast right on your thing, right next to your makeup. It's like, A, that's kind of gross, and B, now it's a safety issue. So now I can say, okay, I'm going to demand the respect of you to not eat your breakfast on my workspace. And now I have a backup because this is not safe. So you have to show me respect. Like you said about Sarah and Vic, you have to show me the respect that I'm important to you. Because if you don't, you're going to get out of my trailer.
yeah. Well, and
I feel like a grumpy old lady on set sometimes because I'm like, we're going to eat and we're going to go home because I'm set mom taking care of the talent. But this is so important that we stand
together.
It's so important that we stand together. I've always kind of like depended on Grip and Electric because so many times I'm a department of one. And I feel like if I say something, I'm the noisy one. But if I see what everyone else is doing, I just stand with them. And I think we have to do that too, is make sure we look after the PAs too, who are learning and say, this is not safe for you to do. And we're going to back it up. And we're
it's created a new culture out there. Taking a deep breath, the way we do business, the way we get our shots, the way we set up our shots. We got to take a deep breath out there. I mean, that's just the new norm, unfortunately. And, it might be a healthier one. These 14, 18, 28-hour days, that's not normal.
Yeah.
we should be taking care of each other.
A comment was made and it's real. It's true. This is not normal. I mean, we don't want to, it's the new reality. And that is what we all have to adhere to, is recognizing that. A question that came, or a comment that came up from Doug was, who has to bear the responsibility to ensure that a film set is COVID compliant? And then is there a check and balance system to ensure that the set stays COVID compliant throughout the shoot? So as an example, you got people who are testing, coming in the morning, doing their job as safely as prescribed, and then they go home. And then who knows what they're exposed to, and then they come back the next day. I mean, there's a lot of out of control exposure. Is that something that you're hearing?
Absolutely. I agree with that. And Doug, a very good question. Thank you for that. Absolutely. I've done 2 or 3. I've asked that same question too. I mean, there's no control mechanism at all. I mean, of course, people post when we wrap and all go our separate ways. There's an obligation of reporting back to production of an exposure, so the notifications can be taken place and people can be tested. But absolutely. I mean, it's we're definitely not in a bubble. We were kind of on the big job that I did, for almost two months. We stayed at the same hotel. Went to ate at the same place, worked with the same camera crew, even though it was in different pods, throughout campus. But yeah, it's a very good question. I don't think anybody has been able to answer that, at least, the ones I've been looking at.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's the producer. And through the producer, it's the compliance officer. And if a producer is putting up a fight against adding a compliance officer to the crew, that to me is an indication that the producer is not taking your life seriously, is not valuing your life, and by extension, your skilled craft. So it's an odd conversation to be having, but I think people's conception of what filmmaking is has been skewed for so long that it's like it's kind of blindsiding a lot of people, not in the profession but outside the profession, because it's difficult for some people to understand that it's not all fun and games and dress up. And the director's a shouting machine and everybody else is scampering around doing the director's bidding. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
At base, you want to work with people who are collaborative, and you know, on, and that's easier on a small crew.
Yes.
On bigger crews, it gets tougher, and then you have to have serious protocols because else shit gets out of hand. And,
Yep.
So I have a question, which I don't think I've heard even talked about yet. Is so you're hired, you come on set. Is it up to you to provide whatever equipment and protection gear that is required for you to do your job?
I'll give you an example. It's up to the production to get your cleaning for the high touch points, your masks, goggles, and all that stuff. But if you are in a position like I am, I've run a first aid and safety business for about 15 years now, so I have all the PPE. And just like a medic, when you hire a medic, you could also charge a kit fee, and mine is usually around $50. So in addition to that, I always try to negotiate with the production company and say, hey, I can provide all that at an additional cost. But ultimately, it is the production company's responsibility to have all that stuff on set.
Yeah.
So if you have a particular, shield kind of mask or something that you prefer, for example, with makeup, you have to be able to see, you want them to hear you. I've seen actually several of them that have been pretty effective looking. But now there's so many products out there. I would wonder if you would be the best judge of what you need to do your job, or if a producer in a, bean counting mentality always would make those right decisions. And then the information that you're using, this is another question I have regarding your classes, Brad, and I want to know more about that in the certifications or any kind of agreement, or not agreement, but activity that shows you've participated in a course. Mark, you mentioned having a certification earlier. So the information about what's available, how with the current news or guidelines, and whether or not is your class teaching Brad the same information that Mark consumed in what he underwent? How closely knitted are these things?
Well, I taught, we based our teachings from CDC, from what came out of LA County June 12th of this year on what it would take to get back to work. Okay. Besides that, and it was geared towards non-unions. Okay. Since then, the unions have come up with their things about swab testing and everything else. So what I encourage here again, coast to coast, you could look at the list of people that I've taught, from DPs to directors to producers and everybody in between. Make sure that you look into your local protocols, because these are going to be a baseline. These are going to be similar, if not the same, but this is kind of the only document that came out early on June 12th. So another thing I wanted to mention about the PPE aspect of it is what I teach in the class is production has masks for everybody. So when you check in, you're washing your hands, you're using disinfected, you go through the questionnaire, you get temperature tested, and at that time, you're given a brand new mask. And here again, it's really up to the production company if they want to allow people to come on with their own stuff. But what I teach and what makes sense is when you're issuing the mask brand new from production, it guarantees that everybody has a clean mask.
Yeah.
Half the time you go on set and somebody has a handkerchief or one of those, you mentioned it earlier, Lisa, the gators or whatever, you don't know when they've been washed.
Yeah.
So it's just for your protection and the protection of the people you're working around. When you issue them a new mask, they're guaranteed to have a clean one, and also to provide them throughout the day on your set, like you would hand sanitizer and everything else. So
a question that has come up here too also, can you refer to Are 3-ply surgical masks effective PPE for sets? I want to provide the right type of mask for my crew, from Felicia Martin. Thanks, Felicia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's good. They talk a lot about the N95s. We heard early on about the N95s with the valves. Not probably a very good thing to have. In fact, a lot of stores that you're going in now are requiring that you cover up the holes.
Yeah.
Also, the N95s were really for hospital personnel. And I know people are saying, well, if they have them, they must be good, but you don't need them out in the public. I mean, the 3-ply that you're buying and seeing out in the marketplace, a lot of them, and I use this term and got in trouble with it, but I'll say it again, and no disrespect to anybody, it's ironic they're all coming out of China, though, all the masks that we're able to get. So, and that's just from being a reseller, and that's what I'm seeing. Nothing local, not finding anything in the States.
Mm.
So I hear what you're saying, Brad, and I love the idea of you get a new mask every day. As far as my world, I'm going to be like insisting that I get a kit fee for PPE because I don't know what people are going to bring, and I have to see through those shields.
Absolutely.
I have one of my gals who works with me and has taken some jobs when I couldn't be there. She has this great setup, and it's goggles and a paintball mask, I think is what it is. And she looks like she is ready to go. But it's kind of funny, but also when you feel safer with somebody coming at you. And our union has got white papers and they've got a lot of stuff, and a lot of people were talking about swim goggles because they seal around your eyes. So I've been taking my mom to a bunch of doctor's appointments, so we got the masks I was telling you about because they have the N95 filters, and I've just been super nervous because I've had to go to the hospital so many times, and luckily she was in a place where there weren't so many cases, but still, it's like every time I walk into a hospital, it's kind of unnerving to do that.
The fear is everywhere. I mean,
Absolutely.
Step outside of our house to go to the grocery store, it's an incredible pressure that you have it in your day-to-day life already, and you're trying to figure out how to manage that, and then you take it into the film production set. Dan Janos wanted to talk more about mitigation around the high touch points. Filmmaking is very tactile. That's something that I think you're probably even finding that you go, oh, whoops.
Well, one of my primary mentors, Joe Murray, who I hope is not listening right now, had a Brad. You know Joe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Joe has been on Facebook saying, I don't think we can do it this way. I think we just have to not work. I don't think we can do it this way. And I understand what he's saying, and I think that's a bit too far. As far as high touch points, I think that's a vector. And Lou, Luke, I hope you agree with me. It's a vector, crew size, and high touch points. Because if you pare down the crew size, the high touch points get easier to identify. Am I right about this?
Yeah.
It's all about the pods. It's all about, there's a camera pod, a grip pod, an electric pod, and a vanities pod. But it's a great question. And unfortunately, the short answer is there's no such thing as 100% zero tolerance.
Yeah,
very
I
true.
guess my issue with that whole approach is how do you keep yourself clean? You know, i- if you go in figuring it's not clean, then you're going to touch, and it's a whole lot easier to do it with hands, because else you're trying to clean gloves or you're throwing away gloves, left, right, and center. So you, in a perfect world, you keep to your own equipment.
Yep.
But even so, if it's always dirty, then, you're not licking your equipment. So,
Well, speak for
you have,
yourself.
Well,
all right. So you have to be covered, and then when you want to touch things, then there has to be enough time and, cleaning stations or whatever, but, access to bathrooms and outside, that gets a little more difficult sometimes, but I've been mostly inside with my work. And you just have to be cognizant of your cleaning rituals.
Yep.
And I think that simplifies this whole thing so much. And
If you
I don't know
consider
why.
everything a high infection touch point, if everything's a high intensity, high infection touch point, it becomes a lot easier to get your arms around and
right.
to modify your behavior. I agree. I think that's a great shorthand for it. An issue that gets into this in that medium-sized crew thing, the idea of portable hand washing stations has come up quite a bit. Now, Lisa and Luke, I know you are. Brad, I'm not sure if you're on this NorCal freelance email list.
Okay.
And there is so much traffic about what's the infrared cleaning chamber to get, what's the best mask, what's the best gloves, what are the blah, 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 blah. And there's so much information to sift through. What about portable hand washing stations? Now, this seems like a killer for a lot of producers.
Yeah, well, it's been simple on my sets. What they set them up throughout the production. Definitely after a meal. You have one way in to get the meal, depending on how big your crew is. One way out, and at the end of that, when you're done with your tray or whatever, there's a hand washing station. It's foot operated, so there's no touching.
Yep.
You have a dispenser that you put your hands under it. It dispenses, and the towels dispose of the paper towels right there, and then you have the disinfectant. So I've seen it work really effectively. But here again, we're not in the bathrooms policing people. We never were before this. And we've all seen those people that have gone in the bathroom and come out and taken handfuls of crafty stuff. And, those are the people we need to worry about that aren't taking this seriously. And
this is what I'm saying. Thank you, Brad. Yes. Well, they need to take it. Everybody needs to take it seriously.
Right. Right. I do think
really. Yeah, Redwoods. The article was the Redwoods all come back. Very, very few of them will not make it.
You don't get to be 2,000 years old.
Sorry.
Here's the thing and Luke brought it up. One of the things what I do, and here again, in a perfect world, you're supposed to have a safety meeting at the beginning. And now, I'm pushing it every set I'm on because you really have to. That's your education time. You have the education of explaining, where your supplies are, how we're going to deal with dead batteries on set, how to get those. We've, made changes in that arena. And also, so a lot of the information comes out. And one of them that you touched on is each department being responsible for their equipment. Because, if you hire somebody, and I've been on sets where they've hired, the PA, and they're the ones that are going around doing the high touch point, and also the greater deep cleaning companies that are COVID-19. In fact, I'm trying to think of the one local. He's down in LA and up here now. But prior to an indoor set where they were setting up wardrobe and hair and makeup and everything else, they came in and did the high cleaning. And but here it's all part of the education up front. So if you have a great AD that's bringing everybody together, introduces the COVID person, COVID at that time, that's where the education comes in about Each departments are going to have to be cleaning their stuff, even though you have a PA on set that's doing, crafty and the bathroom doors and the doorknobs and everything else. They're not going to be coming in and touching your camera equipment or, your, equipment out there. It's really going to be up to you. But definitely the awareness has to be out there, the educational piece of it.
We've had a lot of discussion about that for makeup, about actually having a makeup artist or a hairstylist who is managing the cleaning. Now, this is going to be for a bigger job, managing the cleaning for the trailer. And we're going to have a table outside, and we're going to have, you put your phone on this table. You don't take it in the trailer. You don't take personal items in the trailer. We can't let people stay in the trailer anymore. They're going to have to go outside and do that. But very much to your point, we talked about having someone who understands our equipment and how it has to be cleaned.
Exactly.
And because I can't clean Luke's equipment, and I don't want him to clean my makeup brushes or something like that.
Yeah.
So somebody who really understands the particulars of our department. And, that's hard. Like I said, that's hard to put on a PA because they're being torn 23 ways at once. And I wonder if we're going to get more COVID officers who help. Like, how is that going to work for us?
Yeah.
A
PA is not an expendable drone.
Yeah. Well, here's where the leadership of your COVID-19 compliance officer comes in, making the recommendations up front, because you're going to need a team dependent on if you're going to have multiple sets as these sets grow bigger. Because right now, Mark was right. There's single events, either interviews or documentary, car commercials that are going on out there. But they're going to get bigger as people realize that, hey, we can do this. It's scary, but we can do this. So that's where the COVID-19 officer needs to really show some leadership and say, hey, you may need to hire a PA, and he's going to work in my department. He's going to help me with signage, because signage is a big part of this whole thing. Also, part of the educational process, you may have one way down a hallway or in the production office or, these things. So the PA is going to be dedicated to that. So it's really going to be, you have an assistant in your department, Lisa, so it's just going to be another thing that production's going to have to realize that there is a need as these sets are getting bigger.
Well, Brad, let me ask you a related question. Let me ask you this question. What is preventing, what's the holdup with the DGA, the IA, and SAG getting together and saying, yes, a compliance officer is a key position and the book rate is this? What's the holdup?
You don't want my opinion, but I teach, when it comes, it has to do with politics, and it has to do with the almighty dollar and egos.
Sure.
And so I didn't say that. Of course, we're not live yet, are we? But seriously, I mean,
Same
it
answer.
is. I mean, and the respect for that position, and what I teach in these classes is you're going to have to treat the fee for that person as you would a department head. Because that's a responsibility you hold, as much as you don't want to realize it, but that's what the going rate's going to have to start at. And of course, it's going to be up to you as a compliant officer to negotiate that. But that's the starting point.
I'm glad you used the word negotiate, because the indie, the small producers, the indie directors and producers, they should be able to negotiate with a compliance officer in terms of rate. Because if it's outside the guild and the guild has not yet set it as a key position, there's still some wiggle room, but it needs to be a full-on qualified person. It can't be, Morty the PA isn't getting lunch, so while he's not getting lunch, let him go and check, see if everybody.
Absolutely.
It's not
here's
the way
where they
it works.
can cut. Hey, Mark, here's where they can cut corners. And I sit on the sidelines a lot. And if I was running the show, these are some of the things where I could see them cut corners. The producers, the clients don't need to have Starbucks every day. I never do. I mean, that's one. Come on, think about it. If you took that budget and put it towards something that really matters on your set, and then I mean, that's when you look at the risk managers that are looking on it and stuff like that. I'm sure they can make some changes.
Yeah.
Those are
from your
fighting
insurance
words.
standpoint. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, I'm too honest. I'll
I don't
never
drink
work
coffee,
another
so I'm
job,
fine
I'm
with that.
sure.
Well, that's what this subject needs, Brad, is a little more honesty. It's as I said before, I don't know if we were going or not, but filmmakers are supposed to be problem solvers first and foremost. And if you cannot solve the problem or you don't recognize that it is a problem, what are you doing?
Yeah.
God bless
Right?
that comment. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a question that everybody has to ask themselves. I want to take a second to just thank Luke has to drop off. And I wanted to thank you, Luke, for your participation and so
Great to
nice
be here.
your acquaintance. Please, I will send you a link to this webcast, and you'll be able to see all of the questions and comments that are on here from people that may or may not have something to say that you're interested in. But I'll make sure that you get that, and then I'll make sure that you're also all included in the CFAA newsletter, so you can at least keep up to speed with what we're doing here in the Sacramento region. We want to continue the conversation, but I wanted to just at least stop before Luke had to cut off and say thank you for.
And I do discuss some of this stuff on some level on my vlog, and so that's a good place for people to learn and engage, and so just a pitch for that too.
Where can we find that? Because we'll put that information, that link on our.
It's just Meet the Gaffer on YouTube.
Okay, great.
So if you Google that, you'll get to it.
Okay, Reggie, can you add that to the comments, and then that way everybody on the comments. Also, just for those of you, I know there's a lot of questions about the efficacy of masks and the 3 mask and the wand and whether or not that's all worthwhile. The mask information, Mike Booth included a link on the comments that give a lot more information about different types of masks. And I think a lot of the question comes from people that they're using at home, what their next door neighbor made for them, but whether or not that's an adequate protection in life versus if it is a adequate compliant protection for on set is part of the question. So I think in the perfect
better than nothing.
What's that?
I think anything's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do your research, people. You research it. Learn about the N95 and when they're used. Learn about the regular surgical masks. So it would be a good lesson for you to know this. There's a lot of information out there on it.
Yeah. Well,
about the wands and the disinfecting chambers, the ultraviolet and all that stuff. There are a lot of hazards connected to those things. The ultraviolet, there's a lot of UV damage that you can do your eyes some damage. So you really need to research that UV stuff. That sounded like the magic bullet. And there's also, Brad, back me up on this. There was also an idea at some point as to, well, why can't we just open a grip truck up at the end of the day and put some kind of fogger in there that disinfects it, close the doors, the next day it's magically that. It's not that kind of a bug. It's not, like Lisa says, some of these dwell times for the disinfectants, you have to read the material. You have to read what OSHA says. You have to read what you just have to become familiar with if somebody asks me, I'll tell you. The information is there. And if you're looking for what's the easy way, the short answer is there isn't one.
There isn't.
Yes, sir. Thanks for putting that out there, Mark. Yeah, make sure that you, for your disinfectant, that they're COVID-19 compliant. Also, your deep cleaning companies, make sure that they're compliant in COVID cleaning. The EPA list has the list of prescribed things you want to use. So create the awareness, and here again, keep it simple. Really, there's a lot of information out there, but the ones that you need to follow is CDC, EPA. Just keep it simple. It takes a little bit to research this stuff. Don't listen to Joe down the street that just told you that, wearing this is going to change the world. Just really get the facts on it, because there's a lot of fake news going on. Just keep it simple.
My message to the indie producers is this is not going to sink your budget. Okay? This is going to save your life. It's not going to make it impossible for you to make your movie. It's going to make it possible for you to survive making your movie.
Yes, sir.
Okay? That's what I'm saying.
I don't think that can be clearly stated enough. And, we just have to know that we're setting the level of expectation to where that is what should be the norm. We're starting it, and we got to be patient because a lot of people need to get up to speed. But every effort that we're making, as you are, is to do things the right way and to make sure people know this is not a case of you have an option.
Exactly right.
Reality. This is, what you better be prepared to do. Don't be surprised. And the more informed you are, man, the better hire you are.
Yep.
Ultimately, this has been so incredibly interesting. And, I know that it's kind of a moving target because we're learning new things every day and things are changing and, what we can do and what we can't do. So I would just ask that everybody be very flexible and patient and just
respectful
kind to each other, to recognize we're doing this not from a control standpoint, but because we care about you, and we want you to care about you. So we could go more into detail. I appreciate your time and what you've brought to the conversation. I know that we will probably see evolution of this, but what I would hope more than anything is when we've had a chance to meet you, you've learned a little bit about the Sacramento, Northern California, filmmakers, and know that we have a community of people here that we hope to be putting to work very soon. And we need people like you in that production community.
Thanks for this thing, Lori. And speaking just for myself, if anybody wants to have any clarification on anything, they can get a hold of me through my website or my email, whatever it is. I'm in it to help.
Yep.
Absolutely. And everybody that's out there listening, I encourage you to become a member of CFAA. I think they're doing some great stuff, and that way the community will grow. It will be a healthy community. So I really encourage you to do it. It doesn't cost anything but your time. So get out there and become a member today.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate that. We are an association made up of all kinds of different people just like you. And so if we can see a way to grow it and have everybody benefit from it and do it safely and wisely, we are totally behind that. So very nice meeting you. I appreciate it so much. We're going to end the broadcast if you hang on for just 1 second. Thanks, everybody, for being on board and listening to us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Questions?
Good to see you, Lisa. Good to see you, Brad.
Good to see you, Liz. Yeah, Mark.
We're going to say bye-bye to the audience. Bye.
Bye, audience.